Hey, folks. Welcome back. Welcome to our last day of React 101. Missed day 2. That's a shame, but it's all right. We're going to wrap things up today. We've got some good stuff on the plan. We're going to take a look. Yesterday, we had a bunch of questions about lifting state, hoisting state. So I put together a little example so we could take a deeper dive into that. We're going to look at using the DevTools to debug, and we're just going to take questions. We're just going to work on an app and see what happens and take questions as they come up. Today's the day. So shall we do introductions again for folks that may have missed our previous days?
Yeah, absolutely. I am Alyssa Nicoll. I am an Angular developer advocate and love all things Angular. So I have never really entered the React world. So I'm excited to be on this journey and getting an intro to it. And that's me. Your turn.
Okay, my name is Nikolay. I'm a technical support engineer at Progress, and I'm working on the Can-Do UI for jQuery framework. And I'm very excited to learn more about React.
And I'm Kathryn. I'm the React Dev Advocate for Progress, and I'm excited to teach some React.
Awesome.
So, welcome back, friends. Knock, knock. Who's there? And another excellent pun. Keep them coming. Bonus points for puns. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Well, let's see. Let me go ahead and start. I can share my screen real quick. That seemed to work pretty well yesterday. So we've got our same demo app that we've been working from. Let me actually grab that link and I can throw it in the chat for those of you that are interested in following along. The repo for this is that Kathryn Grayson Nanz / React 101 demo on GitHub. And there it is.
Yeah. I was like, I knew I made a ticker somewhere.
Listen, I was gotta do the banner. So
if only I could make it like a link. I don't think you can. No, I'll have to look into it. That'd be handy.
It would be handy. There's probably I have this bad user experience thing that's but a link could be so easily abused. You put in a link and it's something weird and everyone clicks it. I kind of wonder. It is interesting to see which places.
No one would ever do anything like that. I mean, no.
Something weird and gross on the internet.
Yeah, what? No.
I do think it's interesting that Instagram has held hard and fast to their no links in the captions rule. I really thought they would loosen on that.
One? Yeah.
Yeah. The internet is nothing but wholesome.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. That's, yep. Mm-hmm.
Of course. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and jump us in to looking at using hooks for state and lifting up state. So I adapted our example a little bit. Previously, we had kind of talked about we'll make one of these functions and we'll make one of them classes and we'll show the different ways in which state is handled. But now that I wanted to kind of show how they connect and hand off state from one to the other, that actually felt more confusing than helpful. So now they're both functions and we're using hooks all around.
Okay.
So just to make it as clear as possible. And I was actually really surprised while I was looking, there was not a lot of good documentation, I thought, on lifting up state using hooks. I guess because they're a little bit new. But a lot of the articles I found, there was lots of good stuff on kind of that state sharing using the older method, but not this. So stay tuned. I'm probably going to make it into a blog post.
Oh, you're like, oh, this doesn't exist yet. Let me document it.
I think it needs to exist. Anyway, so basically what we're doing here, the idea behind lifting up state, and the reason it's called lifting up or hoisting state, is that you're moving the state management into the highest component, the one that like trickles down the tree. I'm drawing like a weird diagram with my hands, but like this is home component, this is page component. State only moves down. So if we want to update the state for any of these components down here, we need to make sure it's brought up here so that it can trickle back down. That's the gist of how state is handled in React. So whereas we were previously handling the value state over here in the page, and to be clear, when we're talking about the value, we're talking about this toggly button that changes true and false. As you can see now, I've kind of added in the section here. So up here, we're updating this in the home component based on input that we're changing in the page component. And we're going to talk about how. So this section of state management, where we're defining the value and setting the value, now lives up here in the home component. And we're passing in that stuff, the update value and the value, as props into the page component. And over here, instead of updating the state here, because then it wouldn't be able to move back up, we're calling the stuff that we've defined over here. So when we're doing this, we're using the props.updateValue, props.value to interface with stuff back over here in the home. And in the same way, we've got the name that was still as it was yesterday. That's kind of just a straight trickle down. So now when we are clicking the button in the page component, we are actually toggling update value that we passed in. I should have called that set value so that it was the same everywhere. We're calling the set value that we set over here. Is this tracking thus far?
Kind of. I'm trying to see. Okay, so we've got props.update value on click that's being called. And you're just passing in the opposite to toggle it. And then,
right.
Okay. I think I see all the pieces. Let me see. What about you, Nikolay? Are you getting it? Like, I think I see how this is done.
It's a bit confusing.
It's a little bit confusing.
Which one is the parent and which one is the child? Is the home the parent?
Home is the parent.
Okay.
And so I kind of, when I was doing this page, I tried to kind of use some colors. So home is, everything's in blue and there's a border around it. So that is literally the wrapping parent component. And then page is embedded. And I've got home over here on the left and page is over here on the right. So, parent, child.
Can we do one from scratch? I think that might help.
Yeah.
Like a new prop that we can just like follow along. So we've got, what else could we do? What could we pass?
Let's pass some text back from the child up to the parent. Just a string.
Okay.
So we'll add an input over here, type text. I will indent everything properly, like I know how to write code. On change, we'll have the same kind of setup, and to well, we haven't set up the hook yet, so we will call it props.update with event target value. Yeah, and of course it's broken because that does not exist yet. We have not passed update string into anything. Over here, we'll create a new hook. String. Actually, I don't think I can call it a string. That's a protected word, isn't it? I don't remember.
Probably.
Text. Set text. And I'll update it over here too,
Okay.
so that everything is consistent. Use. Hey. We'll just put an empty string in there for right now. And then down here, we'll need to add update text, which is the name of a prop that we're going to pass into page. And that's set text. And then if we want to display the current value of the text in the child component, we need to pass that in as well. So that one's kind of optional depending on whether we want to confirm the input. Did I just write this input in the middle of my button? That was incredible.
Do you think it would show up? Do you think it would look good?
Oh my god. Let's see if we can break it. That sounds like a monstrosity.
Yeah, Cloud said bark if you agree.
Apollo.
Definitely. Yeah. Okay, so we added the input, and then we have it. You created the hook, and then you are passing it into page.
Yeah. Like,
oh my god, it's there! I love it so much.
That's so gross.
I've
That's
never
the
put
worst
an
thing.
input on a button. I love that. That's funny. Trailmix said that your pup got his dog's attention. She just left to go outside and find the dog.
He's really going at it over here. I tried to mute for a minute. Hold on.
I think I get how this is. I think I get it. It's pretty similar to how Angular does it. As far as like properties and binding them into like child components. Mm-hmm. So I think I get the 3 different like points that you need to have if you're passing something up. I think so. Well, it's actually really just 2, I guess, unless you want to print it. Like you were saying, page says text. Okay.
How do we close tags? So yeah, here we go. Here's our horrific text inside a button. And you can see now that on change, it's updating the text.
Do you think it was like not very well documented because, like you were saying, it's like there's just so new, or do you think it's because people just don't do this often?
I think it's kind of a mix. In general, you want to kind of avoid patterns where you're passing back up the chain. Like sometimes they really are just inevitable, and it is what it is. But often you'll find that you might not need that, you know?
Yeah.
And it's good to kind of keep things as orderly as you can. But like, it really depends. I think the lack of documentation specifically around hooks is because they're new.
Okay.
And there were examples out there, like it was fine, but like the actual breakdown, the official breakdown in the React docs was using the class methods.
Not so the hooks with the function.
Not the hooks. But there also are, now I'm thinking about it, there's new React beta docs that just dropped.
Oh, nice.
So maybe things are new. So here's the new React docs. Let's see. Let's state up by example. Maybe I was just wrong. Oh yeah, no, these use hooks. That's great. I stand corrected. I should have looked at the new docs.
No, that's awesome though. So the beta docs, has that always been there? Like,
no, these just dropped like in the last couple of weeks. beta docs are brand new.
That's really cool.
And really good. So
Are they going to replace the original ones?
I'm not 100% sure what their plan is with that. Right now, if you just go to reactjs.org, they have their own docs that are here, which is why when I was looking for listing setup, they have a great example, but it's using the old school, a class with a constructor, and the like binding method, which works.
Do you know how old hooks are? Like, when was that introduced?
I want to say 3 years ago.
Okay.
I want to say hooks were React 16. Yep.
Nice.
What a pointless bit of knowledge that takes up space in my brain. I wonder what I've forgotten because I'm remembering that React 16 is the one with the hooks.
It has hooks.
That's like, you know when a song comes on and you're like, how do I know all the words to this? This came out in like 1995. It's just taking up space. I'd love to replace that with like anything useful. Literally anything else. But
Rocket Devrel said they were introduced by the captain, of course. Is Dan the captain? Is that what he's called?
I don't know.
I just saw that article was by Dan Abramoff, so I didn't know if that was like a inside the React community joke. Like, oh, he said Captain Hook.
Oh no, it was a setup for a pun.
Oh my god, you got me.
I was like, is that what we're calling Dan?
I'm totally fine. Actually, next
petition
time,
that we now call Dan the captain.
Next time I see him, I'm be like, you're called the captain now, right?
Yeah, we've started something, and you're gonna hate it.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, so I think I get it. I also, especially with like the beta docs showing how to do it in hooks, it's definitely feels like that's maybe their new opinion on how you should do things. Like
in general, I think things are shifting towards hooks, and like if we look at even on like Kendo React, we've shifted, and we've got all of our docs and demos. You can toggle between hooks and not this one. I didn't pick a good one. 99.9 of ours.
You're like, it was there, I swear.
No, it was there. So I was looking at the grid. Most of ours, you can toggle between hooks and classes.
Oh, wow. So JavaScript or TypeScript and then hooks versus classes. Okay.
Yeah. They've done a really good job.
That is really cool.
It's really impressive. Because, yeah, like not everyone is jumping over onto the hooks train. When I was working for a company that was using React, like we hadn't jumped over. Hooks were relatively new to me because I was working there and they were like, we're not going to bother. This is fine. And then I started working for a place that was doing everything in Angular. Then I came back here and I was like, I better brush up on hooks. So I would say it's still relatively common to see applications that don't use them, but because they're like, especially this was so much sleeker and faster than doing it the old way. So I think yesterday I was like waffling. I think now I'm officially on Team Hooks.
I like that. Some people get upset about that, like where you're like, they're like, yeah, but yesterday you were, and I'm like, you're allowed to change your mind, people.
I've learned more. I'm smarter and more well-rounded than I was yesterday. God willing, every day of my life, that trend will continue.
Okay, so I think we've talked about like starting a React app. We've talked about routes and creating components, the different types of components with like functions versus classes. And then we talked about doing things like state with hooks and without them. Is there any other like, I'm trying to think of like React buzzwords that I've heard. Like, is there any other like, pillars of React for beginners that people usually touch on?
The only other thing that I would like to touch on today specifically DevTools. So as you can see, I've added React specific tools to my DevTools panel, and that will allow you, will kind of break your page down into your components. So you can kind of see how it's working. And then there's our home, our parent, and our page. And when we click onto these, it will update the current state for us so that we can keep an eye on what exactly is happening. This is really great when you've got more complex applications where a lot of stuff is in state at once and you're trying to remember kind of like where everything is and how it's interacting, especially if you've got global state and local state. You're trying to like juggle. So the ability to not just have to like, you can always console log your state and see what's in it. Like,
Okay.
Is this an extension?
Yes.
For the, okay.
So I'm using Chrome. It's a Chrome extension. I think they have it for Firefox too. I'll throw it in the chat. Folks that are interested. But it adds just a couple of tools to your DevTools panel. So I honestly usually only use components. Oh, just for Chrome and Firefox. Thank you.
Oh, nice. Okay.
You know, when I first started streaming, I was afraid. I was like, I'm going to say wrong things and be corrected all the time, and it'll feel really weird. But in truth, every time someone corrects me, I'm so grateful.
No, I know. And that's the same. Like, I was nervous whenever, like, they were like, yeah, we want you to stream and code live. And I'm like, that sounds like a lot of mansplaining is going to happen. But actually it's more like the chat has always like lifted me up and helped me like get past whatever I was stuck on. So
yeah. No. And like, I promise I'm not genuinely grateful. Like,
yeah,
that's what I'm saying. It's fantastic to know that you can just kind of be like, is it for this? And someone will be like, yeah.
or no, or here's a link, or yeah, or try this code. I love it. Yeah.
Right. Even just, we were having a good laugh at you trying to install NPM the other day. But the fact that everyone jumped in and like we solved it together was literally so cool. So I'm not saying that to be sarcastic or to get anyone to stop. Anything, just the opposite. In fact, please keep doing it.
Yep.
Please keep supplementing info. So jumping back over here, we can watch as we are updating the state, the DevTools will update in real time. So our first one is null because that's our name. And so as we type into here, things will update and we can keep an eye on what's working and if what we think is toggling state is actually toggling state. And
will you bump up the font for your DevTools? Just make that a bit larger. Thank you.
Good call. It's so big now. There we go.
I know. Anytime you know that your font size is perfect for streaming when it's uncomfortable for you. Like when you get to that point where you're like, I can't see anything. It's so big. You're like, that's perfect. Chat's going to be like, yeah. Okay, so it just plops it into this, what do you call this? This tree structure.
Yep. And you can narrow it down if you're looking for something specific.
Oh.
And highlighted everything. If you use the inspect tool and then jump back over, it automatically focuses where you are, where you've highlighted.
Where you highlighted. Okay.
So that's super useful in being able to dive into, see the current state of all the props being passed in also. So helpful. It's one of those things where you're like, yeah, here we're only passing in 3-4 props. Like, it's fine. But when you're doing a bunch of it and some of the props that you're passing in are big objects or arrays themselves, the ability to open this up and just check on the status of all that is a game changer.
Yeah, Chris was saying that the only reason he knows that it also works in Firefox is because that's his default browser. It's funny because I use Chrome, and I guess do you guys both use Chrome on the reg?
Yeah.
No.
What do you use?
No.
What do you use?
You mean Chrome? Yeah, I'm using Chrome, not Firefox.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah.
So
But
I
I
only
thought
ever hear about Chrome or Firefox. Like I never have anybody in the chat who's like Safari. Like you must use Safari. Like right. Like I never hear about. It's
Literally the only time I hear that is when someone wants to make a point about like something that's not working. Because I feel like now that Chromium, Safari is the laggy browser in terms of feature support. Yeah. Safari, meh. Anytime anyone throws out Safari is when someone wants to go, well, that doesn't work in Safari
that,
13,
right? Yeah, it's never like fanboying for Safari.
No.
Where are all the Safari fanboys at?
Safari is what you use to download Chrome.
That's funny.
But yeah. Jumping back. Yeah, the React Docs beta off the chain, agreed. But they literally dropped, October 21st was the drop on these. So they are brand new. And Rachel did a fantastic job. They look, literally so clean, so easily searchable. Great examples. 10 of 10. Agreed. They rule. So
what is the React release cycle like?
it is not as structured as Angular. I'll throw that out. I feel like Angular,
it's not like on a cadence or anything?
Not one that I've found. No. And like we're still kind of in this waiting period. React 18 is coming and we know it's coming soon, but we don't have like a date for it because it's not on this like every 6 months or every year. So we will probably get React 18. Probably my guess is the beginning of next year, but it's been like I was talking with Sarah and she was like, we should do one of those games like you do at a baby shower where everyone guesses the actual
God. Yes. The date that it's date's going to be released. I love that.
We all just
for
make
those
bets.
of you who don't frequent baby showers, there's
lucky you.
There's a game where you guess when the baby will be born, and there's like a calendar, and you write your name on it, and then you like put money or something into the pot, and then whoever like gets closest to the actual day that the baby's born gets it, like gets the prize. And so
I want to do it. I think it would be fun.
We should do that for so it's kind of the same for Angular. So this week we're getting version 13. And this Friday, actually, Angular Air, the podcast that I do, will be doing an after party for the release. And so that'll be like 1 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. So come check it out and hang out with us. There'll be like people from the Angular team and from like the GDE community just hanging out. But like it's very much the same where we have like a
I thought Angular did have like a cadence. Does it not?
They do, but it's not to the day. Okay. So like because we like I was like I'm gonna guess that it's like next week, and then like I was telling our team that, and then I found out that it was gonna be this week, and I was like and everybody was like like oh no, because like we have products that we support and that we try to keep up to date, and so we're constantly looking at like the latest RCs and like making sure that like we've got everything integrated. And so whenever I found out, I was like, it's this week, go and the team was like so it's very much the same where we have like a range, but it's never an exact promise on this day. So yeah.
React 18 is on its way for those that are interested in cutting edge, which is maybe not 101 content, but that's okay. Actually, let me start that sentence again. This is an incredible reference because they've gone through, this is the React working group discussions on GitHub, and that sounds like it would be incredibly complex, and instead it's really, really fantastic. They kind of walk through everything that's coming and of what everything means and how you can use everything, standard patterns. And there's a really great, let me see, I had it somewhere. There's a really great Explain Like I'm 5 glossary.
Ooh, that's cool.
That
It's a glossary? That's so cool.
Yeah, there's some new stuff, especially around concurrent features that are coming in React 18, which is going to be really cool, which basically has to do with the order in which React is rendering things and handling like changes from user input to the state. Right now, it just kind of like happens as it happens, and it will complete one task and do another and do another. And some of this stuff coming will allow us to mark things as urgent versus non-urgent, so that certain updates can like jump to the front of the list, which is really cool, honestly. And there's some great examples here around concurrency and how that works and what it means, just broken down in a way that super easy to understand. And then some of the features that are based off that concurrent feature, like suspense and our like set transitions and yeah. So
yeah,
they do a good job if you are interested in updating right away.
If you're 5, you don't need to worry about React.
Yeah.
I love it. I love that concept. I think I've seen Explain It Like I'm 5, like blog posts, like an article or something, but I didn't know there was like a glossary. Cool.
Yeah. So they do a good job. The only other thing, let's see. I
was gonna say, is there anything else that's like new and coming that's like exciting in React? Or
I mean, the concurrency stuff that I was talking about is, I would say, what I am most excited for, because I think that's going to be really good in terms of like user experience, the ability to like set stuff on pause and be like, no, this is more important. They have a great example where they're talking about like searching through a huge database. Normally, you'll kind of hit search and it'll chug along and everything else will kind of hang because it's doing this big thing and they don't want you to interact with more stuff, send more commands while this is going. But with stuff like a set transition that they've got, you can basically say like, this one's urgent. If they do any of this, load it right away and you can interrupt it. So
okay.
If they search and then they're like, no, that wasn't quite right, and they search again, it doesn't have to fully complete the first search.
Complete it. It doesn't block you out. Okay.
Yeah. So
that's really cool. Yeah.
That's what I'm most hyped for. And Dan Abramont was also kind of hinted that set transition is laying the groundwork for new animation features that are coming not in React 18, but maybe in React 19. And I'm very excited for that. I love web animation. Okay. So
I'm wondering, like, would it be like a loading, like indicator type animation you think that it's like making the way for, or do you see it in another use case?
That kind of stuff is already there a little bit, but I think because that came up, someone was like, why did you use the word or the term transition? That's normally an animation thing like CSS transitions or like transitional states. And he was like, yeah, as a matter of fact, that's kind of what we're going for. So I think we'll see more of that in terms of like, my guess, completely unfounded at this point, is that will be leading us towards more like Greenstock-esque, like complex animations.
Is Greenstock still popular? Like, is that still used?
I think so.
I think so.
I think so.
It's been a hot minute since I've like seen it, so I didn't know if it was
still
like
exists. But yeah,
like okay, yeah. I was like, surely.
Yeah, I haven't done a big animation project in a while, but the last time I did, it was still the default.
So it's hard, like animations like inside of these type of frameworks, because like a lot of the time I think routing is the best that I can think of. A lot of the times you really want to put your animations on the CSS side because it's going to be the fastest and that's where it belongs. But But like you think about things that like, a page load or even loading like a component or something, in order to like have access to like the knowledge of this thing is loading or you're now into it, like you really have to hook into JavaScript at that point. And so I think that's where these frameworks are like trying to provide like the API and like a smooth way of integrating these type of animations. And I know like the last time I played around with Angular animations, it was okay, but it wasn't like, here's your green sock library inside of Angular. So, and I don't think that'd be a good idea, just because I feel like people would then start reaching for that all the time when maybe you really need to question like, where does this animation belong? So I think animations inside of JavaScript frameworks is tricky.
It is. And I think it's hard because, like you said, probably most of the time with animations that folks are thinking of right off the top of their head, like quick loading animations or, shifting one shape into another shape, like all of that stuff can happen really easily with CSS. It's really powerful, and there's a lot more animation tools built into CSS than I think people realize. But if you're going to do something really complex, and I think about there was an app I was working on where they wanted like a gamification kind of thing. And so whenever someone completed like a lesson, they wanted it to do this little animation where like a little package unwrapped and it was like, ta-da, and it was really cute. It was a really cute idea. And the designers had made some really cute illustrations, but that was more complicated than anything that could be handled in CSS. And GreenSock did a great job for that. That's the last time I've fussed with it. But let's see. Chat has been popping off while I have been ranting about GreenSock. What's happening in here? Oh, some cool stuff happening with CSS, SVG, and GreenSock. I want to highlight the Twitter link so that I can copy and paste it, but I can only hide and show the comments on the screen. I will take your word for it that it's very cool.
But where are my Red Sox? Lols.
But one more. There it is. The last thing that I wanted to kind of touch on is that in the OG React docs, I do think they have a really great section here where they're talking about thinking in React and kind of how you approach a project from a React point of view. I'll hold it up because we just talked about things being unreadable. But they do a really good example of kind of saying like, all right, start with a mockup and kind of think about like the data that you'll need and how that's going to actually appear on the page, and then break that up into components. I think for a lot of people, when they're making the jump to either React or Angular, that shift into kind of componentized thinking is a really difficult one. And I really like this diagram that they show where they've broken every single piece of this UI down into blocks. And each one of these will realistically could be a component. And they kind of show like, well, here's the same component and we're repeating it with different data. Because that's also, there's kind of an abstraction piece there where you're like, okay, a component doesn't have to render exactly the same every time. What can I build into this component so it's fluid and reusable and accepts all the props that it may or may not need? And how will I handle, like, what if we don't have a price? Like, what if we're out of baseballs and there's no price? Like, how can that component be the same as the one that displays the price? Otherwise, you create 20 million itty-bitty components and it becomes really difficult to work with your application. So I think this approach of breaking it down into these bite-sized pieces makes a lot of sense. And figuring out which is the parent and what data needs to come through.
Yeah, Salt was saying that component traumatized. I don't know if that's a word. We're making it a word. Thinking.
It's a word I just made up. Yeah.
I love it. Tripped him up and like passing in props and children like to the child and things like that. And Napalm was saying that like Angular and Blazor like does things this like component way as well. So it can be, I don't know, I feel like I was told by someone that I think they actually had a line number. They were like, once your component reaches this many lines of code, we'll say 52. Once your component reaches 52 lines of code, it needs to be another component. And I was like, really? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah, that's one of those places where I think deciding whether a component is like smart or presentational can help a lot. We kind of talked about that from a tech perspective the other day in terms of like, well, what is what does that mean? But when you're choosing, what does it do? I think that's a good way to kind of break up things as well. Because if you realize that you're putting a lot of like businessy logic into a presentational component, or you're having to like arm twist it in a way that feels awkward, that might be a sign. And I think always kind of aim to make things as presentational as possible. And when that's completely impossible, you move whatever logic you have to move into that component. That's my take on it. But the more things you can keep purely presentational, the less separate components you have to update when something changes. So.
Yeah, I think in Angular I've heard it referenced as like dumb components, or
I was trying not to use
like visual only components, or
it's the same thing. I just don't like the word dumb. I think it's kind of gross, not to be like weird, but yeah, it's the same. Like visual only, presentational only. Yeah, all means the same thing. So, yeah. Don't go by lines of code. I think lines of code is a good like code smell, I guess. Like if you've got a component that's huge, that's probably a good sign. Like maybe something's wrong. If you got a component that's doing 5 different things, maybe that's wrong, you know?
Yeah. For me, like, I know we were laughing at it and Fuel was like, yes, line-based decisions are the best, you know, like line number-based. But like, for me, I love rules like that just because obviously it's not like a, 53. Well, we just can't, you know, like right I get that. I get that there needs to be flexibility, but rules like that, like stick in my head and they like are just like nice little reminders as I'm going that I'm like, oh yeah, this is massive, to do. Right. Like, so yeah. I don't know. I like whenever people give me rules like that because it's just very like short, simple, and to the point, and like it's easy for my brain to like log it away as something, and I don't necessarily take it by heart, and we're at 53 lines, can't do it. So but yeah, I
think it's just kind of a red flag. What about you, Nikolay? How do you decide when a component should be 2 components?
Yeah, I think there are no strict rules, but something like for a code line, for example, can give you an orientation. If you see that the code is going to be too much, at some point you realize that it's been too much already, and you have to maybe divide it. But it really depends. It cannot. There is no one rule for everything. It really depends. So it has to be case by case. I don't know. It's complex.
Programming would be a lot easier if there were more hard and fast rules.
Do you guys know if this is true about Java? I didn't know that. Like if that's actually you can only have that like 65,536, that many lines of code. 65,000.
Really?
Like that is so like I feel like I know those limitations have to exist at some point, right? For like the hardware.
Right.
But Can you imagine being in a class and like scroll like I can't I'm sure someone's had that experience. I hit the limit in Pascal. What is the limit, Ed? 5? Like
I was about to be like, imagine being the guy who wrote 65,537 lines of code in Java.
Who found that out?
And then it turns out it was actually Ed. Yeah, I gotta tell you, I have yet to write something in JavaScript so atrocious.
or be a part of it, right? Like I've never jumped into a project and like opened up a file and been like 5 minutes later it loaded, you know, like oh my gosh. That's funny. Yeah. Yeah,
it depends. It really does. Could you understand something that big in JavaScript? No. Absolutely not. JavaScript, I think especially, is bad about letting you get away with a whole lot of weird stuff. If you were to combine all that with, I don't know, 65,000 lines of code, no thank you. That would be... I would tag someone else in that ticket and just take the L.
In my defense, I was 15. What?
Hey, you were 15 when you hit the
when you hit that limit? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Note to self: don't hardcode the text of Stephen King novels into your JavaScript class.
Oh, that's funny. So where do you go from here? Like, what's the, are there like next steps on like building blocks for React, or is this basically it and you just start throwing in like other libraries and go? Like,
I mean, I guess it depends on your learning style. For me, I do best just being able to get in there and break things. And so once you've got kind of the basics, I fully recommend just like jumping in and trying stuff and seeing how it goes. There are tons of fantastic resources out there. If you're looking for like guided tutorials, obviously these docs, the new beta docs, fantastic. People creating walkthroughs and beginner React stuff all the time. I'm confident if you wanted, you could find a to-do list that you could recreate, since that is the tutorial of all tutorials. But I recommend just building. Find something that is interesting to you, and start. And along the way, if you run into bumps, Google is there, the docs are there, we're here. And there are tons of folks in the community that are really great.
I mean, that's one thing that I feel like, even if I fundamentally like disagree with React as a language, like that's one thing that I can't deny is their community. Like the community is massive, and the resources that it provides, there's just, it's like seems endless. That's why whenever you're like, oh yeah, I didn't find that many examples of how to do, you know, this way of like hoisting state, and I was like, you didn't? Your community is huge.
To be fair, everything's relative. So I found them.
Right.
You know, I found probably 5 or 10.
5 or 10. And I'm over here like looking up something like on my .NET show. I'm like, how do you do this in like WinUI? And there's literally nothing, like 0 results. And so I'm like, why? So like whenever you're like 5 or 10, I'm like, what?
I was surprised that I had to specify hooks. I kind of thought if I just searched for like hoisting up state, I would naturally get examples with both classes and functions. Right. And most of them still aired classes. But once I appended and was like lifting up state with hooks, I found a handful of good resources.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever you need to do, there's a blog for it. That honestly kind of true. Honestly. I think we are in a really interesting era of programmers who are self-taught. And even those who have formal education are still continually learning from everything on the web. I think it's cool.
I think we're just super blessed, you know? I was talking with a friend yesterday on stream about his experiences in like early .NET days and like building things with like WPF and WCF and like just like kind of paving the way on some things that, because like it was just released, right? Like there are no docs on it. And so I don't know, I think we're really blessed to be in this world where it's like, here's your 10 articles, right? Like which one do you prefer? So
yep.
But also pass it on, you know? I like how you were talking about writing a post for this because it just wasn't readily available like whenever you search without hooks. And so I think, you know, even if there are 10 articles, maybe someone will learn better from the way you write it. So definitely love that vibe in our communities.
I always encourage that for anyone. And half the time, even if you write it and you opt not to post it for whatever reason, the act of writing it will teach you how to do it. Mm-hmm. I won't say almost better than anything else, because I think actually coding it will teach you the best. But second is writing an article about it or teaching someone else. Yeah, if you have to understand something well enough to explain it to somebody else, you will know it from then on.
I really have like twice. I've like Googled something, clicked on an article, and then realized I wrote that article because I'd forgotten how to do it. I'm not even kidding you. And like twice. And I was like, well, past self, thank you for this. And like followed the instructions and it worked. And I was like, what is wrong with me? Like
another win for past Alyssa.
It's so frustrating that I didn't even remember that I wrote the article. Like that's how bad it is sometimes. I'm like, snap.
Maybe I'm just still too early in my DevRel career. Maybe once I've written as many articles as you have, I will also forget.
I was like, oh, this is really not how your brain should work, right? Like the internet is basically my search catalog now. It's all just like, and you think, boy, I was like, yeah. I'm like, wow, I sure knew a lot back then.
There's only two responses looking at your past code. And it's either like, wow, I was really smart. That was a great way to handle that. Or like, what? Dumbass.
What a monster. Yeah.
Why does
I actually pulled up an old site that I designed like years ago. And I was like, I stand by it. Like I was like, I could see, you know, I could see it. I stand by it, you know, like the UI. I was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Those are nice. They are also rare for me too.
That's wonderful though. And you should realize how wonderful that is, because that means you're growing and you're learning and you're better than you were, right? Like God help us if we keep looking back and going, man, those were the good old days, right? Like I think
that's true. It's all been a decline from here.
The old noggin's not what she used to be, you know, like
right. Git commit. Amen. You gotta make sure nothing in Git blame will put you at fault. Oh man.
This has been a really fun mini series. I'm grateful to you guys for hopping on and doing it these 3 days. It was fun.
Yeah, I've had a good time. I hope it was helpful. I hope it was educational.
I mean, what do you think, Nikolay? Are you sold? Do you love React? Tell me the truth. Tell me the truth. Does your heart still lie with jQuery?
No. React is live. Yeah, this was so much fun. I really love this.
But like,
I'm starting to like it even more.
I feel like I need to have you on and like do this same thing but with Angular, and then get your real thoughts on which one you prefer. We should
totally do this in reverse.
Yes, right. Teach both of you. Although you know, Kathryn's like over here building production apps in Angular, so it's gonna be.
I only did it for a year, and I will tell you, I never mastered.
That's knowledge I signed off on.
I immediately just whoop, it's gone. It was yoked from my brain as soon as I quit. But yeah, no, if you could explain RxJS to me, I will subscribe. Please. I never really mastered that.
No, I'm right there with you where like I can do it, but it's not my favorite. It's not my favorite.
No.
I reside on the front of the front end for a reason.
Truly, truly.
But I appreciate both of you so much. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah. This has been a blast.
Definitely.
Really appreciate you guys in chat. So thank you all.
Yep.
Thank you.